Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe for more epic HFY stories. Hit that bell so you never miss a video.
The relay station hummed with the quiet energy of a dying star. Elias Thorne stood at the center of the circular chamber, his knuckles white around the microphone. Outside the reinforced viewport, the swirling vortex of three intersecting wormholes painted the void in impossible shades of violet and gold. This was the crossroads, a neutral ground where species from across the galaxy traded, not goods, but stories. Elias's job was to tell them. "All right, you cosmic weirdos, listen up," he said, his voice crackling through the speakers. "You've got your floating jellyfish, your crystalline philosophers, your sentient nebulae, but you know what you don't have? Stand-up comedians." Because who'd laugh? A few chuckles rippled through the crowd of holographic avatars. Elias grinned. "Exactly. You're all too busy being serious. Me? I'm from Earth. We're the species that invented sarcasm right after we invented fire. Because nothing says we've got this like roasting a mastodon while it's trying to eat you." The crowd shifted, their light-based forms flickering in amusement. Elias leaned closer to the mic, his eyes gleaming. "But here's the thing about Earth. We're predators. Not because we're fast or strong, but because we're annoying. You ever try to hunt something that throws rocks at you, then runs away laughing? You get pissed. You chase. Then it sets a trap. Then it mocks you while you're stuck in the mud. That's us. We're the universe's most irritating survivors." A towering figure coalesced near the viewport. Vex, a being of pure electromagnetic energy, its form shifting like a northern aurora. "Your species is insignificant, Thorne," it hissed, its voice a cascade of static. "You are a fleeting spark in an endless dark." Elias smirked. "Oh, I know. But sparks can start fires. Ever seen a wildfire burn down a forest? That's us. Small, persistent, and really, really good at making things bigger than they should be." He winked at the crowd. "Now, who wants to hear a joke about the time a Forlac tried to negotiate with a human toddler?" The broadcast rippled across the galaxy like a stone thrown into a cosmic pond. On the fringes of known space, the Shroud, energy-based beings that fed on electromagnetic radiation, stirred. They were ancient, silent, and utterly terrifying, their presence a void that swallowed light. For millennia, they'd been a whisper of fear, a legend mothers told their young to keep them quiet. Now, a human voice had breached their collective consciousness. Elias's words echoed in their hive mind. Asterisk. "We're the universe's most irritating survivors." Asterisk. It was a challenge. An insult. The Shroud did not tolerate defiance. They converged on the crossroads, their forms coalescing into storms of crackling darkness, blotting out the swirling wormholes. The station's alarms blared, red lights bathing the chamber in a hellish glow. Elias stood his ground, Vex hologram flickering beside him. "They're here," Elias said, his voice steady. The Shroud. Big, scary, and hungry. He adjusted his microphone. "You know what's funny? They think they're the top of the food chain. Because they eat energy. But energy's just food. And we're the ones who figured out how to cook." The viewport shattered as a tendril of pure darkness lashed through, cracking the reinforced plasteel. Vex recoiled, its form sputtering. "Their feed signature is overwhelming," it warned. "They'll consume everything." Elias grinned, a wild, reckless look in his eyes. "Then let's give them something indigestible." He slammed a button on the console, and the station's speakers blared, not a distress call, but a snippet of his earlier set. The Shroud paused, their forms flickering as they processed the sound. Laughter. Human laughter. It was an alien concept to them, a vibration that defied their logic. "See," Elias said, his voice rising over the chaos. "They don't get it. They don't get us. Because we're not just predators. We're comedians. And the punchline is always on them." The Shroud advanced, their darkness swallowing the station's corridors. Elias and Vex fled through the twisting passages, the air thick with the scent of ozone and fear. Vex's form flickered violently, its energy draining as the Shroud's presence intensified. "We cannot outrun them," it gasped, collapsing against a wall. "Their consumption is absolute." Elias hauled it to its feet, dragging the energy being toward the central control room. "Then we don't run. We fight dirty." He skidded to a halt as the doors to the control room slid open, revealing a swarm of Shroud tendrils writhing like black serpents. Oh, hell no. He grabbed a maintenance panel, prying it open to reveal a tangle of wires. You ever seen a power surge? He asked, grinning at Vex. Because I'm about to throw a party. He yanked a thick cable, sparks flying as he jammed it into a live conduit. The lights flickered, then exploded in a shower of sparks. The shroud recoiled, their forms destabilizing by the sudden surge of raw energy. Vex's eyes widened. You're feeding them. Not feeding them, Elias corrected, slamming another cable into place. Overfeeding them. Ever heard of indigestion? The station groaned, metal screaming as the power surged. The shroud shrieked, their forms dissolving into chaos. The control room doors slammed shut, sealing them inside. Elias leaned against the console, panting. Well, that was fun. Vex stared at him, its form stabilizing. Your species, you thrive in chaos. Elias shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. What can I say? We're adaptable. And really, really stubborn. The shroud retreated, their presence fading like a bad dream. But the damage was done. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for millennia now looked to the crossroads, to the human who had dared to laugh in the face of extinction. Revolutions sparked, not with fire, but with jokes, tales of human ingenuity, of turning weakness into strength, of making the universe's most terrifying predators the punchline of the oldest joke of all. Elias stood on the station's observation deck, watching the wormholes swirl, now teeming with ships, not just traders, but refugees, revolutionaries, those who saw hope in his madness. Vex floated beside him, its form calm, steady. You started something, Thorn, it said softly. Something unexpected. Elias smiled, his eyes distant. Yeah, I guess I did. He turned to Vex, his expression sobering. But revolutions have a way of eating their own. What happens when the Shroud come back? What happens when the galaxy realizes we're not just funny, we're dangerous? Vex's form dimmed. You've given them a weapon. Laughter. Unity. Hope. Those are more powerful than any fleet. Elias sighed, rubbing his temples. Yeah, and now we've got to protect it. He looked out at the stars, at the countless lives now depending on a comedian's gamble. Guess I've got a lot of material to write. The Shroud returned, not as a swarm, but as a singular entity, a towering monolith of darkness that blotted out the crossroads star. The station shook, alarms blaring as the entity's presence seeped into every system. Elias stood in the control room, Vex at his side, their faces grim. They're here, Elias said, his voice tight. And they're pissed. Vex's form flickered. Their consumption is total. They will erase this station, everyone on it, and every memory of your broadcast. Elias slammed his fist on the console. Then we give them a show they'll never forget. He pulled up the station's external speakers, his voice echoing into the void. Hey, Shroud, you want a snack? Come and get it. The entity pulsed, tendrils lashing out toward the station. Elias grinned, wild and fierce. Oh, you like that? How about this? He activated the station's wormhole controls, sending the 3 routes spiraling into impossible configurations, creating a storm of chaotic energy that slammed into the Shroud. The entity recoiled, its form destabilizing. Vex stared, its form blazing. You're using the universe against them. Damn right, Elias said, his eyes locked on the entity. We're not just survivors. We're artists. And this canvas is the galaxy. The Shroud shrieked, its form fracturing as the wormhole storm tore into it. Elias watched, his expression unreadable, as the entity dissolved into nothing. The station fell silent, the only sound the hum of the engines, the quiet victory. He slumped into his chair, exhaustion hitting him like a physical blow. Vex floated closer, its form gentle. You saved them. Elias shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. No, I just bought them time. The Shroud will be back. And next time, they'll be smarter. He looked out at the stars, at the fragile peace they'd bought with a joke. But that's okay. So are we. The crossroads rebuilt, stronger this time, a beacon of defiance in the dark. Ships from across the galaxy now docked not just to trade, but to listen, to Elias Thorn, the comedian who started a revolution. He stood on the stage, the crowd before him a mosaic of species, all united by a shared laugh, a shared hope. And so, Elias said, his voice warm, the Shroud learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate the guy with the microphone, or the species that invented sarcasm. The crowd roared with laughter, a sound that echoed through the station, through the wormholes, into the dark between stars. Vex floated beside the stage, its form steady. Your species is remarkable. Elias grinned, wiping a tear from his eye. We try. He looked out at the crowd, at the faces, alien, familiar, all alive. But revolutions aren't won with jokes alone. They're won with people, with hope. He paused, his expression softening, and with the knowledge that no matter how dark it gets, we'll always find a way to laugh. The crowd cheered, their voices blending into a single, defiant song. Elias took a deep breath, the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, and smiled. Because in the end, that's all they ever had. Each other. And the courage to keep telling the joke. The stars burned eternal, indifferent to the struggles below. But on the crossroads, something new had taken root. Not just a station, but a symbol. A testament to the power of laughter, of defiance, of the human spirit. Elias Thorne stood on the observation deck, Vex at his side, watching as a new ship docked, its crew waving, their faces alight with hope. They're coming, Vex said softly. The shroud. They're gathering. Elias nodded, his expression calm. Then we'll be ready. He turned to Vex, a faint smile on his lips. You know, I always thought my greatest joke would be about my ex-wife. Turns out, it was about the end of the world. Vex's form shimmered, a rare sound like laughter echoing in the chamber. Your species is unpredictable. Elias sighed, his eyes on the stars. Yeah, but we're here. And that's enough. The station hummed around them, a quiet promise in the dark. Because in the end, that's all they ever needed. To stand together, to laugh, to survive, and to keep telling the joke, no matter what came next.